What a March Madness tournament it's been so far this year as we wrap up this year's Final Four and head on now to this year's national championship game between two of really the best teams in the country when you look at it in terms of teams who really play on both sides of the ball. It's going to be an exciting one. It's going to be a very, very good game when we finally get to it on Monday. It's going to be between Gonzaga and the Baylor Bears. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. We got so much to break down today. We're going to be breaking down both Gonzaga and Baylor, and make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I give my picks on who's actually going to be cutting down the nets on Monday night. Just before we do get into the video, though, make sure to subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs. It would do me a huge, huge favor. Also, make sure to leave a thumbs up if you want to see more content just like this. We'll start with the Baylor Bears, who come off a big win, of course, in today's Final Four matchup against the number 2 seed Houston. They took that one by a score of 78-59, and what a game it was. Especially in the first half from Baylor, we saw the defensive intensity. We saw what they can do on offense. We saw the Baylor Bears that we really were seeing at the beginning part of the year, and I think that's a really, really good direction for them to be heading into against this tough one against Gonzaga. But what really makes Baylor, well, I've mentioned it in past videos, they're a great offensive team. They have so much scoring depth. They're very well coached, but a lot of people love to forget about how good this Baylor defense is. Their defensive intensity started to decline a little bit after they came back from, obviously, their delay with the virus, but they figured it out again. And a lot of people forget that when Baylor was going through their undefeated streak, this was a team that was well inside the top 10 in terms of defensive efficiency. They're a great offensive team. They're a very, very well-coached team. But Baylor's defensive intensity is what really sets them apart. We saw it today in the first half. We've seen it really throughout a lot of these games in this March Madness tournament so far. The second half against Villanova, their game that we saw a couple days ago as well in the Elite Eight. When you look at Baylor, again, today, going into this game against Houston, you really got one thing that you got a game plan around, which is Quentin Grimes, the best player on Houston. Baylor knew that they had to take him out of this game if they really wanted to be successful, and they did that in the first half. They really did it over the course of the entire game. He shot 1 of 8 from 3, 4 of 12 from the field, only put up 13 points. And Baylor's ability to really step up in terms of defense and isolate a player like that and take Houston's best player out of the game and really follow through with their game plan is why I think Baylor is going to be the biggest challenge that Gonzaga has faced all year. Now, we're going to get to Gonzaga in just a second. But in terms of Baylor, again, they're led by 3 double-digit scorers: Jared Butler, Maceo Teague, Davion Mitchell, who was, the defensive player of the year. They're a really, really balanced team who shoot the 3-ball better than almost anybody in the country at about 42% over the course of the year. They move the ball just like Gonzaga does. They score off those assists. They're a fairly good rebounding team. Very active again on the defensive side of the ball. They'll make you turn the ball over. They'll get those steals. And for a Gonzaga team who is, the best offensive team in the country, as we're going to get to in a second, this is a very, very good defensive matchup, I think, for them against Baylor. And I'm really curious to see what Baylor can do in terms of scoring to match, obviously, those electric numbers that Gonzaga pulls up. But let's flip over to Gonzaga. Now, Gonzaga is in the midst of now trying to finish off a undefeated season, and what an impressive year it's been. You're talking about, again, no losses so far, some really impressive ranked wins back in 2020, obviously the West Coast Conference Championship in 2021, and then some really impressive wins in this year's March Madness tournament, including one tonight against UCLA. You look at Gonzaga, obviously it's the offense that stands out. You're talking about the number 1 team in the country in terms of adjusted offense. You're talking about a ton of accolades as well. Coach of the year, small forward and power forwards of the year. They're a great three-point shooting team. Gonzaga does a lot of things very well. I think that this is the best college basketball offense that I've seen pretty much ever. I can't really think of one that I've seen that's necessarily better than them. The tempo that they play at, their ability to shoot the 3-ball, it's so impressive. But what's also so impressive about Gonzaga is their ability to play defense. Nobody talks about this defense of Gonzaga, but just like Baylor, well into the top 10 in terms of defensive efficiency, and they're a great team on both sides of the ball. What I really like about what we've seen from Gonzaga so far this tournament is other teams, they have gotten out to hot starts. Oklahoma started the game off very, very hot. Creighton shot very well about midway into that first half. But even when Gonzaga does allow points, it's so hard to score more than Gonzaga. Gonzaga will always score at the same pace as you or score more, and they have the ability to lock you down defensively and really put you through some defensive droughts. I think Baylor's better defensively, but this Gonzaga offense is so good, and even the defense has the potential to shut down these Baylor Bears. When you look at Gonzaga, it's 4 double-digit scorers. You got Drew Timme, Corey Kispert, Jalen Suggs, you got Ayayi as well, all who can really shoot the 3 ball. Gonzaga matches up really well against a lot of teams, especially because of Drew Timme. If you can't stop Timme inside, it's going to be a problem all night long for Baylor. But even if you do stop Timme, you've got Kispert, Suggs, Ayayi, even some guys off the bench like Nembhard, Watson, all guys who can score off the bench and shoot the 3 ball. Corey Kispert, one of Gonzaga's big men, shoots a 3 ball at 45%. Absolutely lights out. And again, even if Baylor somehow ends up stopping Drew Timme, you know, they have so many options from the perimeter that can absolutely demolish you. Gonzaga is so talented. This is going to be a tough matchup for Baylor, but I do think it is the toughest matchup that Gonzaga has played all year in terms of what they're going to have to do offensively and defensively in order to win this game. Now, in terms of my overall prediction, it's really hard to pick against Gonzaga. The more that I've watched them throughout their West Coast Conference this year, the more and more that I've liked what I've seen from Gonzaga. No team can stop them. Teams have barely been able to slow them down, and it's going to be really hard for Baylor, again, to keep Gonzaga off the scoreboard. For Baylor to win, as I was saying, they have to shut down Drew Timme. That's where the Gonzaga offense really starts. But unlike what they did against sort of Quentin Grimes, they have to shut down 4 guys. And unlike, again, just isolating Quentin Grimes out of that game, they don't really have one guy that they can particularly take out of the game. They have to make sure that all 4 of those big scorers for Gonzaga aren't necessarily completely off the scoreboard, but they can't be shooting lights out. What we saw against Baylor against Houston was they took off Quentin Grimes really off the scoreboard, only 13 points, but then it left Sasser with 20 points. So if Baylor takes Drew Timme, let's say, out of the game, they have to make sure that Kispert, Suggs, Ayayi are not getting open looks on the perimeter. It's a really tough matchup, and that for that reason, I'm going to be taking Gonzaga. Now, at this point in the game, we don't know what the spread is. I assume it's going to be right around 5. And I do think Baylor has the potential for sure to keep this game very close. And again, you got to keep in mind that this is going to be not only the best opponent that Baylor has played all year, but really one of the first ranked opponents that they played since back in 2020. Right, Gonzaga, other than BYU, USC, Creighton, a few teams in this March Madness tournament, they have not played teams near the caliber of Baylor. So this is going to be a really interesting one. Let's see if Gonzaga can end up sort of keeping that undefeated streak, obviously, and end off what has already been an amazing season for these Bulldogs. But anyways, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, let me know your thoughts, your predictions on this national championship game down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure to subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs. Make sure to leave a thumbs up to let me know that you guys did enjoy this video. But as always, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.